Welcome to Sassy Mama's first virtual webinar. I am Kristen, the marketing manager at Sassy Mama, and today I am here with Irena Constantin. Irena is an occupational and educational psychologist at Scott's Psychological Center in Singapore. We are excited to kick off our expert chat series with a discussion on anxiety in kids. But before I turn it over to Irena, I would like to take a moment to remind everyone to put yourselves on mute so we can clearly hear Irena and all that she has to say. After Irena's presentation, there will be an opportunity for questions. If you have any, please put them in the Zoom chat function. And at the end of the presentation, I will go ahead and read them out loud for Irena to answer. For those of you that submitted questions ahead of time, I have those. Thank you so much for submitting those. And now, Irena, over to you to introduce yourself and kick us off.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christine, for that very lovely introduction and a warm welcome also from my side. Lovely to see so many attendees, and thanks for taking your time for today's webinar about anxiety and coping tools, how to deal with anxiety in general. The agenda for today is I've tried to compile it to 3 different parts. So during the first part, we will learn some, or I'll try to provide you some background information. What is anxiety? Yeah. How do we define it? What are the types and stages we usually go through if we face anxiety, if we face it, or your children, someone else is facing it. The second part is a little bit, or might be more of an interest for you, because we will have a closer look. What are the signs, of anxiety, and what kind of coping tools do we have to overcome it, the do's and don'ts. And the third part, I've put down some very simple and easy activities for you. You can do it at home anytime for yourself. It takes only a couple of minutes, but it is a good exercise to reflect and study a little bit how high are your anxiety levels or your child's anxiety levels. So I will come later to that. And of course, the last 15 minutes open to any kind of questions you have. Hopefully, I might be able to answer most of them. Now, let's go over to some facts and figures. So we know, especially with the circumstances we are in nowadays, also with the pandemic who kicked in 18 months back, that we face all over the world very high anxiety levels through all the ages and through all the genders, cross-cultural. The recent data we got from the Anxiety and Depression Association in America show that approximately 40 million adults from 18 years and above are suffering every year from the most common mental illness, and that is anxiety. If we have severe signs of anxiety, we call it an anxiety disorder. So that's quite a high number. And we see it at our clinic from our clients that we have an increased number of clients seeking help, also for their little ones. My youngest client is not even 4 years old and facing high levels of anxiety issues. Why is that? Especially during the pandemic, it is difficult to meet up with friends, with family, we cannot travel. So those are all factors that add up to that anxiety. The good thing about the anxiety is that anxiety is highly treatable. It depends a little bit on the stage, but we have very good tools. Important is that we don't see it as a label or a stigma, but that we get at the soonest help to overcome that symptom. If we go to our next slide, I've tried to, Christine, yeah, thank you. I've tried to give a definition. As you know, we psychologists, we find it very difficult. We have different definitions for the same symptom, but the American Psychological Association would define anxiety as an emotion which maybe can be described best as a mental symptom, feeling of tension, worried thoughts, overthinking, together with physical symptoms, Usually, we don't see all the physical symptoms like an increased blood pressure or stiff muscles, but it comes together. So anxiety, please be aware also with your children, look out for physical symptoms, but also have a look what kind of mental symptoms your child might have. Don't worry, I will give you later on also some examples, yeah, to detect the signs. Please keep in mind that anxiety is a normal and healthy emotion, yeah. Why that? It is some sort of an alarm system that our body needs to tell us if some danger is around us. So think of the evolution 200,000 years back when we were hunters and we would go hunting, a tiger pops up, then we are into that fight-flight modus. Even we do something, we cope with the danger, or we leave and go away and protect ourselves. So please, it's a healthy emotion. We will discuss later on what are the signs and when is it going to a different stage where we really need to seek professional help. On the next slide, I just put it down for your records. We professionals usually distinguish between anxiety versus fear. Fear and anxiety both produce similar responses to certain dangers, yeah? Fear can be seen if we understand the threat. Let's say, I fear the dog, I fear the spider, I fear the exam tomorrow. That's fear, yeah? It's a known threat. Anxiety is a little bit like a cloud. We have many, many unknown factors, yeah, or poorly defined threats. It can be COVID, yeah, at least at the beginning of COVID, we could see that people did not understand what type of virus is it, what kind of measurements do we have to deal with. Then we would talk about that anxiety symptoms. In that webinar, we will use it as a combined term. We will not distinguish, so we will even talk about fear or anxiety, so the same terminology. Let's go to our next slide. To understand anxiety a little bit better, we need to, and maybe Kristen, you can show me even the next slide. I think it's much better, yeah, to visualize it. Thank you. Anxiety is a basic and a primary emotion. Why basic and primary? Psychologist Paul Ekman identified back in the 70s that we have even more than 4 basic emotions from an early stage and year on. So the basic emotions, like, I need to put on my glasses, anger, fear, disgust, joy, sadness, and surprise, are all being developed during the first year of every human being. So if you have small little children, you might have discovered and detect that. It is a primary emotion through all the cultures, through all the genders, and through all the ages, of course. During the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year, we have so-called secondary emotions that will kick in. But for today, we will focus just on the primary emotion because fear or anxiety is one of them. And why I put that slide down, it's an important one. It's just because I get lots of questions from parents. Do we have typical signs or different anxieties in boys or girls? Yeah. Do we have different types of anxiety in different cultures? With that slide, you can give an answer. No, it's in the basic emotions. We all face it, all humans face it over the whole world. Then we'll go over to the types of anxiety. To reduce the complexity, as you can imagine, we have many, many different types. Yeah, we can distinguish what forms of anxiety we have. And believe me, it's not always easy to detect in which cluster we can put that type of anxiety. I've just mentioned the most 4 common anxiety types we see in our clients. So usually clients come to seek advice and support because of stress-related anxiety. So what is stress-related anxiety? That can be anxiety in your children not coping well with test exam situations, stress-related anxiety can be moving to a new country and everything is not familiar, moving to a new class. Everything what is new in your daily life can cause, or any change in your daily life can cause stress. So that's the bunch and type of stress-related anxiety. Then the next big type of anxiety, what we have seen, especially with teenagers, is social anxiety, but not only. What we see right now also with the pandemic is that also small little children are facing social anxiety. What is social anxiety? Suddenly not being able to reach out to other classmates, peers, play dates become a struggle suddenly. They don't like to interact socially with other people in person. The last two types of anxiety, panic disorders and phobias. Phobia is another term for fear, like the fear of dog, the fear of a spider. The last two are considered more severe types of anxiety. And if you are suffering from that type, you need really, I would advise, immediately get professional help. It is not part of that webinar, right? I would rather focus on the first two types, the stress-related and social-related anxiety. Now, on the next slide or page, we find the stages apart from the types. Yeah, we try to cluster what types of anxiety we have. We also distinguish and try to find out what kind of stages usually we all go through. We have 4 stages: the mild, moderate, severe, and panic. Please keep in mind they are not coming up in a particular order. So you can have a mild anxiety, and depending on the stress levels you're facing, go stress to the panicky stage. Yeah, think about the tiger example I just gave you. If you face a tiger in front of you, you will not go moderate, severe, and then panicking. It will go straight to the highest stage of anxiety. As long as you discover in yourself or with your child mild or moderate stages, still okay. I can give you, and I will give you today also some self-help coping strategies you can overcome for you and your child together. If you reach the stage severe, panicky, like phobias, yeah, or very heavily symptoms, somatic symptoms like heavy sweating or fainting, that's called severe, at severe stage, then you need please to seek immediate help with a professional. We have nowadays very good tools where we use CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy tools, for mild or moderate anxiety. For severe and panicky anxiety, you might need to consider also medication to help you out. Yeah. Next one. Again, here just to summarize for you, I can't emphasize enough that anxiety is really a normal emotional behavior. It's based a basic primary emotion, and it's an important emotion for your child, for your child's behavioral and emotional development to go through it. Yeah, of course. The difficult question is always, how do I know it's still normal and not abnormal? Again, later also maybe if you provide me then some particular questions during the question and answer platform, I can give you a little bit more coping tools based on that. Please keep also in mind that the biggest trigger for anxiety is stress. So if you discover suddenly high levels of anxiety in your child, think about what could be the stressor, yeah? What has changed in your environment to cause that, yeah? Next one. I often get also asked, is there any age-related anxiety we need to keep in mind? And now I'm slowly going already into the second part of that webinar today. So we are leaving the background information, the definition and the introduction, what is anxiety, to understand it better. We go into the second part to a little bit understand what are the signs, what do I need to look in particular age-related stages of my child, and to look out for coping tools. Now, I've clustered a little bit the ages in early childhood, school children, and adolescents to make things easier. So in early childhood, the anxiety you usually see is, of course, fear of dark, fear of being alone, the fear of strangers. If they overcome that, hopefully, and they get older, they grow older and come into the school children's age, some additional anxiety might pop up, like increased workload at school. So they need to deal with more homework. They need to deal maybe with more subjects. So that can cause stress and increase the anxiety. And if they reach the age of teenagers, on top of that might be a trigger, the social medias, where teenagers constantly now compare themselves. That can cause a lot of stress. Being the feeling of not being enough, not good enough, not pretty enough, not thin enough, and the constant exposure to being judged, even in social medias, that is a big, big trigger we usually see in adolescents. Now again, the normal development, whatever normal is of a child, is if you have a child in early childhood between 1 and 3 years old, it's normal that it faces exactly those anxiety symptoms, what I've put down. By the age, we hopefully, think that it will overcome and leave that behind. But usually what we see in daily life is that even in school children or teenagers, they still show signs, symptoms of anxiety, which you would think that is based in early childhood, like the fear of dark sometimes, or not being able to talk to strangers. So again, it is intertwined. We cannot cluster them. It can be intertwined. When is it intertwined? Whenever your child probably is super stressed out, it can fall back to early childhood anxiety. Let's go to the next slide to identify a little bit the signs of anxiety. What do you as a parent need little bit to look out and be a little bit more aware of it? If you remember the definition of anxiety, so there is a mental state, and a physical part. If you see your child or yourself, you have increased rapid heart rate, or you heavy sweating or rapid breathing, those are really clear symptoms of that's a severe anxiety, okay? Slowly, you need to go to think about getting professional help. Now, the mental signs, so-called mental signs, are a little bit more difficult to detect. So one mental sign could be concentration issues, right? I have lots of teachers, they're reaching out to me, Ms. Constantin, the students, or I have a few students, they are not studying, they find it difficult, they cannot focus, they cannot concentrate. Those are all stress symptoms, which behind is usually anxiety. So that would be a mental state we have to look out. Also, the last two, insomnia, if you see any change in your sleeping pattern, of your child or yourself, you cannot sleep through it immediately, you have nightmares, you're waking up in the night. This is also a mental sign of you are highly stressed, you might be also highly anxious. It's the emotion behind. And the last one, it's an interesting one. Sometimes also we as parents are not aware. I have myself also 2 children, 2 daughters. When they were younger, on Sunday evenings and Monday morning, they would tell me, Mommy, I have a tummy ache. That was for me always the indication, oops, school starts, a new week. They might be a little bit nervous, or they don't want to go back to school. So that was for me an indication, maybe they're a little bit stressed out. So look out a little bit also for those type of signs and try to combine them. If we go to the next slide, we will find some coping tools, and you can go to the next slide, Christine. We can combine that. So this is now probably or one of the most important slides during that webinar. You might understand now what anxiety is, the definition, the history, the emotion, primary emotion, but the signs and stages, but you want to know, how can I cope for myself if I'm anxious? What coping tools can I provide to my child? Number one, and it is combined for you, for yourself if you face anxiety, but also for someone else, please always acknowledge that emotion, that yes, your child is anxious, don't play it down. Yeah, that's very important. Usually small children tell me that once they feel acknowledged in their anxiety, 80% has been solved. So they need that acknowledgement of, I'm here with you, I understand you, I'm listening to you, tell me what's going on in your life right now. So don't play it down. If it is a severe anxiety attack, which can happen, please remind yourself to keep calm. I know not always easy, but please keep calm and then start using a clear communication, short sentences, yeah, speak calmly, simple sentences, so your child can give you instructions what to do. If the child is younger, yeah, we'll come to that also, then, and has difficulties to verbalize, then don't talk too much, just give your child a hug and be there for your child. 80% usually, yeah, you will bring down that whole anxiety. Important also is never make assumptions what the other person might need or what's best for your child. Always ask again, what is needed? What can I do for you? You will see in the next slide, yeah, also that the do's and don'ts, yeah, to cope with that anxiety, because it's not always easy to distinguish, is my child just coming up with something and using it as an excuse, or is it a real anxiety? How severe is it? Again, a healthy way is always, yeah, to think about, how do I act as a parent when I'm anxious? Yeah, what kind of coping tools do I usually use? Don't forget, children are very observant and perceptive, so they will always look at you and imitate the coping behavior you are using, yeah, to cope with your own anxiety. So be careful what you mirror to your child. I always say strong parents, strong children. So if you see that your child is specifically or always have been anxious, maybe have a look on how you cope with anxiety. Maybe you find it also difficult or don't have the right tools to deal with anxiety at all. Help each other. I've learned a lot from my children, because I have a child who is not anxious at all, and the second one is a little bit more anxious. So I've learned a lot also from my first child to mirror me things, mommy, cool down, all good. So help each other, see yourself as a team. Another thing that is really important to do is, apart from mirror the positive behavior, apart from using a clear, calm communication, also to think about not to maybe avoid things just because your child might be anxious about it. Let's say your child needs to take the school bus and your child gets bullied, which happens a lot, unfortunately. Then the solution is not to let your child not take the school bus anymore. That might be a solution short term, but long term, you need to provide your child tools. Yeah, how can your child cope with that bully in the bus? Do we need to reach out to the school, to the bus auntie, to the school teacher, to talk to the bully, and so on? So you need to look out for constructive, manageable solutions. Yeah. Let me quick check if I have another one. Yeah, the goal isn't to eliminate anxiety, because again, it's a primary basic emotion. It's like happiness, we cannot get rid of. It's part of us. We just need to keep it moderate, yeah, and mild, and to start finding tools to reduce it, yeah, so we are able to manage it. That's very important. One last thing you should not do is don't ask leading questions. Yeah, try to use open-ended questions. The famous W questions: what, where, when, who, how, when did it happen, how do you feel, what is the next step that might be helpful for you. Why open-ended questions? You gain much more information of your child, and you will be able to look out for good coping tools that might help your child. Closed or leading questions, yeah. Are you anxious? Yes, no, will not lead anywhere else. Yeah. So please be reminded, communication is that tool to cope with anxiety. So be aware how you communicate and use as often the W questions. Let me see if we have anything else. Yeah, look out, please, always together for a positive outcome. Involve your child, age appropriate, as much in the solution process. Children love to be involved. Children love to come up with also their own solutions, even sometimes it's not accurate or not possible, but try to work together with your child and integrate them in the solution finding. That is the second part, yeah, with the coping tools, do's and don'ts. In the third part, yeah, I've put down some activities. I would say very easy, simple, yeah, simple activities you can do wherever you are, and it only takes a couple of minutes of your time. So the first activity you can think about is, when was the last time you or your child faced anxiety? Yeah, was it today morning? Was it the whole last week, or is it just once in a while, once in a month? Yeah, so you can little bit figure out how severe that anxiety is. And if you think about that activity 1, you can go straight to activity 2 and take a couple minutes of your time and think about, what made your child anxious? Yeah, describe a little bit. Think about, can you describe the situation? Yeah, can you figure out the stressors, the triggers? And can you talk about more about your feelings and emotions? Can you describe them? If you take this few minutes of your time, activity 1 and 2, then we can go over to the third activity, which I call the anxiety cake. Yeah, what is the anxiety cake? Yeah, the anxiety cake is nothing else. It should help to compile activity 1 and 2 into that cake, to visualize how big is how much is anxiety affecting my daily life. Yeah, or my life in general. Yeah, so I've divided that cake in 10 pieces, or if you're a number person, we can say 10%. Yeah, each piece is 10%. So let's say, yeah, how often do you feel anxious? Let's say you feel anxious the whole day through it. Then the cake, you need to color the cake fully. Then you have a full anxiety cake. And then I would suggest something needs to be done. It's too much of anxiety. Let's say you only are anxious once a year if you need to go to the dentist. Yeah. Then of course you only color only one piece. It's only 10%. But again, because we are talking about anxiety, this one piece can be as severe as the whole cake. Yeah, so going only thinking you need to go once to the doctor, or your child needs to go to the doctor, it can really get into a panicky stage, which needs also to be considered and addressed accordingly. So this is just a little bit to see if you have 1, 2, maybe 3 pieces of cake. I would say still a normal, mild, moderate anxiety stage you have. If the cake becomes half of it, 50%, I would say it's slightly severe. You need to look out for professional help. And of course, more pieces on, if you color the whole piece, then I would say something needs to be done, definitely. Yeah, so it's just a little bit of visualization. And then if we go to the next slide, that's just an anxiety journal. You can compile activity 1, 2, 3 again. like a logbook. Yeah, you can write down in each column the date and the time you faced that anxiety, maybe in the next column, where did it happen? Yeah, and the situation, what happened in the next column. So it is just again to compile all your thoughts in that anxiety journal. And then maybe in the last column, you can think, the how can I cope with that right now? So you will easily identify maybe some patterns if you write it down. So it's a journal that might help us keeping track and detect some patterns. Maybe you will figure out I'm only anxious or my child is only anxious during nighttime. Then we know it's only to be addressed anxiety during nighttime. Otherwise, my child is absolutely okay, and so on. So that's a little bit a help for you. You can use them as a self-help because they are quite easy and manageable to be used in and implemented in everyday's life. So that was the third part. And so how I will close and will give over to Christine.
Thank you, Irena, for those wonderful insights and tips on anxiety in kids. We've had some questions come in already, but as a reminder, if you have something you'd like to ask, please put it in the Zoom chat function and we will do our best to get to all of the questions. The first question for Irena that we have is regarding anxiety disorder in children. If it's not treated in childhood, what's the worst case scenario? Can it develop to a serious mental illness or mental issue like depression?
Right, yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, if it's undetected, yes, it can be developed, because if it's undetected, think about the stages. It will probably be manifested to a very severe panicky state. Yeah. Now the question is, if it's undetected, usually we don't see the signs, and that's happening. I totally agree with you. I would tell, be careful. How do I detect the signs? Yeah. That's a question parents often ask me. Think about what is my child's normal behavior, okay? And think about when do I see something abnormal. Let's say you every time go to a play date and your child is playing with the children and suddenly it's not playing. That would be an abnormal behavior. Then you have to think about, okay, why is my child not playing? Do I see any changes? Is there a new child popping in? Is there a child who bullies my child? And so on, to figure out the triggers and stressors. And then that comes now the important thing. I try to link it to give an appropriate answer to that. Think about how, or observe how your child is behaving in unusual situations. I have children, they become, whenever they are anxious, quiet, shy, they close up and they start crying. I have or see children, whenever they become anxious, they show the opposite behavior. They become loud, aggressive, stubborn, extrovert, introvert. So only you as a parent, yeah, can know what is an abnormal behavior in my child, yeah. And if you see an abnormal behavior, try to detect, yeah, the stresses and get into a conversation with your child, because most of the children still feel ashamed or embarrassed if they would admit I'm anxious. It's still a stigma nowadays also for us adults. So please, yes, to answer, short answer, yes, it can be developed in a severe depression if you don't do it, if you don't address it. Okay, did I answer the question? Yeah.
I think so. This is a long-winded one, but it's an important one and a lot to unpack here. I have a highly sensitive 4-year-old girl. She's shown anxiety about most social situations and new activities since I can remember. And she's getting a little older. Her anxiety is starting to manifest itself in other ways, most notably in bad behaviors like defiance, rudeness, anger. And she frequently has meltdowns and crying. I hear comments from other parents about how painfully shy she is. She hears these comments and it adds to her insecurities and anxieties. She has already told me things like, I hate myself, I can't do anything right. She asks me multiple times a day if I love her, which is heartbreaking. My questions are, do you have any tips for me to help her with unavoidable social situations, should I be pushing her to participate in these anxiety-provoking situations? And how should I handle comments from others?
Right, I see. That's a very good question. Thank you so much. I think we can all relate. Whoever has children, we can all relate more or less to that situation. Number one, yeah, it seems that the child is very sensitive and anxious. Please bear in mind also as parents, we can have as many children. Each child is different, and we have a different tolerance regarding anxiety. Yeah. So you might have 5 children, they all deal different. So anxiety is also part, maybe it can be genetic, a genetical part, right? Part of our DNA regarding the levels of tolerance and how we cope with it. So I would say coping tool number 1 for that parent is please protect your child. Yeah. What do I mean by protect your child? Get rid of the comments. Don't get irritated by comments. We all get irritated as parents. Everyone else knows it better. No, I really would address to each parent of you, you know your child best, full stop, yeah? So please, I want to encourage you, you know your child best, protect your child. No, don't expose your child if your child feels stressed, yeah? So if you see your child doesn't like to be surrounded by other children or social anxiety, don't do it. First, we need to figure out why. Why is the child stressed, right? Yeah. Do we have other we need to start implementing slowly coping tools at home before we expose the child outside. Did I answer that question right now?
I think you did.
Yeah.
We can go on to the next one.
Yeah.
What tips would you have to help manage the anxiety of young children who are unable to speak fluently yet? So they're not able to really communicate.
To speak fluently, right? Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's the tricky one. We cannot see into their mind. They cannot express themselves. Really difficult also for us as professionals. How do we address it? Usually, I let through play. Yeah, I do lots of play therapy where the child can play and express while playing some of the feelings that I can ask. Yeah? So that's one thing we use as professionals. You can use the same thing also at home. So children express their emotions while playing, number 1. Number 2, while drawing. Yeah. So we need to think about and find age-appropriate tools for them because verbally they cannot do it. If they're not able at all, yeah, or they close up and they don't talk about it, one important tool is, again, show emotions. What kind of emotions? Hug your child, be close to your child, protect your child. Your child needs security. Yeah, your child might need you more than ever. So be close to it. Yeah, don't play it down. Oh, you are 3-year-old, you should do this and that. Yeah, tell your child, I understand you, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm protecting you. Does that help?
Yeah, I think it does. The next question we have from a viewer is, what is the likelihood that a 12-year-old who's been diagnosed with panic attacks and depression will no longer need medication with appropriate treatment and counseling?
Yeah, what is the first, I missed the first sentence. Yeah,
what is the likelihood that a 12-year-old who's been diagnosed with panic attacks and depression will no longer need medication if they are, doing treatment and counseling?
Right, yeah. Well, if we observe a little bit the stages again, right? Yeah, if treatment is working, medication is working, and slowly, of course, always under the surveillance of a medical doctor, we can get slowly rid of the medication and implement new tools. Yeah, me as a psychologist, I'm here to implement new tools, yeah, substitutes in terms of a medication. I can provide more tools, then we can get rid of. So what I want to say, you need to observe your child stage by stage before we take off too many helping tools. If we want to get rid of medication, we need to find a substitute, let's say only therapy and no medication anymore, and observe how it goes. If the panic attack comes back, then we need, of course, medication. Only psychological tools are not helping at all. So to reduce it, we need to be very careful to take one tool out, observe it, and substitute it with an additional tool. But it's manageable. We can get out, right? Yeah, we can get out. It is a matter of time.
Good to know. That's positive. Another question that came in was, what if the issue that my child is anxious about is out of my control to resolve? So example, sickness of a parent or grandparent due to COVID.
Right, yeah, that's now one thing. Thanks for that question. We are dealing since 18 months right now. Well, we feel helpless, right? Not only the children, but also we as adults, yeah. I have had so many clients, they've lost a loved one, they were not able to travel back to their home country. Yeah, what are we doing right now? Well, there is only as much as we can do, again, provide as much comfort, within the family, and look out for maybe rituals, talk about, that's important, talk about that sadness or about that emotion, and let your child know it's not alone, and try to find pragmatic solutions. Tell your child, we cannot travel right now. Yes, I'm very sorry, grandma is sick. Try, if grandma is sick, if grandma is still able to communicate through technology, FaceTime, Skype, to build up a connection still, right? If a loved one has been passed away, unfortunately, then try to integrate that with photos, pictures of that loved one, integrate it in your daily life. Otherwise, it's too abstract. Children cannot deal, especially even we as adults cannot deal now. It's too abstract, that whole COVID situation, right? So talk about it, age appropriate, implement it in your daily life, so the anxiety finds another channel. Right? Does that help?
Yeah, I think it does. And I have another very topical one from someone for you. How would you suggest helping a child cope with social anxiety given the social distancing measures in school? So this person with an extroverted son used to make friends easily, but now the kid is having a lot of anxiety and panic attacks because he started primary one and he's not allowed to talk to other children and they're socially distanced. And it's probably something a lot of us can relate to at the moment.
Right, we can all relate to that. Yes, very good question. It's a crime what's happening right now. I always tell that. Why is it a crime? We will manage COVID, I'm sure about that. It's a virus, we will find measurements, but the collateral side effects, and I'm not talking only about the economical ones, but the social ones, what we did for the children, teenagers, we can hardly think about it, right? We just see the waves coming right now, and it's we are still expecting more waves in terms of higher levels of anxiety. We are all a little bit helpless. What we see is, I still have students, they haven't been to university, they haven't seen their peers, and they were locked in a dorm and had online sessions. I mean, how healthy is that? I don't want to make any prognosis, but we need to keep a close eye right now. Whatever you can do within the family, there is only as much you can do, is stick together, and I'm sorry, I cannot answer that question because we don't know the effects, and the effects will not be positive. I say it like that. Does that help?
Yeah, I think it does. It's definitely a hard one. Here's one for our teenage parents, or parents of teenagers, sorry. So what would you recommend for teenagers who do not want to discuss issues? So I know teenagers can be notoriously hard to get them to communicate, so they refuse to talk and get external help.
Yes, I see. Yeah, that's a difficult one. Try it maybe through peers, if they have a good social net, those teenagers, and they have some good friends. Try to reach out and get help from those friends and tell them, hey, my child is very withdrawn. I'm anxious that my child might be too sad, getting into a depression. Can you help me? Reach out for help. Peers usually help each other, and there is no fault in that, not reaching out for any help you can get. Yeah, maybe a peer of your child or teenage child can recommend, hey, I think you need to go and seek professional help, and they will do it. If it comes from a peer side, usually they are much more open. Of course, once they have been with me, it's also easier for teenagers because I'm neutral. Yeah, I'm not judging, I'm not the parent, and they can upload, but it's an issue till we bring teenagers once into the session. So try peers, reach out to their social network. It can be even an adult, a good friend of yours who can speak to the child, as an example.
Thank you for that. So I want to be mindful of time because we're running just a little bit over. Anyone that did not get your question answered, I will pass them on to Irena, and then we will send them out in the follow-up. But I wanted to thank you so much, Irena, and to all of you for joining us for our first Sassy Mama expert chat. We hope you all learned some helpful tips to manage and help your kids cope with anxiety. If you feel like you or your child would benefit from some professional help, please reach out to Irena. Her details will be in the follow-up email. And then look out for that follow-up email because we will send out a link to rewatch the presentation, and stay tuned for our upcoming events. Our next one will be in early September on the resilient child.
Thank you so much, Christine, and all of you. Thank you so much. Take care.